All right. So I have here this yellow sheet in front of you, and this is just talking about the Equifax breach. And I'm going to touch on some points that are banking fraud related, and that's what we're talking about is cybersecurity. So first of all, I have a couple questions for you. And I know you're eating, but I've got rewards. How many of you already have a credit monitoring service? All right, here you go. Thank you. How many of you get a free credit report annually and review it? Oh, next to me. Great job. How many of you check your bank account activity daily?
Always.
There was a lot up there. I think since you're next to me, you're going to get the. How many of you are receiving e-statements for your banking? All right, so you're right in front of me. Bill, you're going to have to, I wanted to throw them, and I normally do in my presentations, but I'm afraid here. I don't want to break anything. All right, how many of you use online banking? Oh, okay, can you do it?
Yeah.
All right, how many of you use online bill pay? Nope. I mean. Whoa! He's like, I'm ready. How many of you set up online account alerts on your? Okay, Bill. No, you already got one.
He's used to people throwing stuff.
Okay. Oh. How about your iPhones or your cell phones password protected?
Yep. Yeah.
Oh. Here, I'll do a walk down. Great job. And then how many of you verify purchase made by your employees on a company card? I know, I've got to catch somebody who hasn't. Good job, okay. You haven't? It's just because you're right in front of me. You got one, see, you're. All right, so those were rewards for good behavior. That's your smiley face. So here are some bad behaviors.
Do we have to give the money back?
Give the money, yeah. If you raise your hand, you got to give it back. No. Do you still send checks out to pay bills? Are you going to admit it? Who's still writing checks to pay bills? Okay, all right. Are you still receiving bills in the mail? You open your mailbox and bills come, okay? Do you receive bank statements in the mail? Okay. Do you carry your Social Security number in your wallet? Okay. Do you have PIN numbers or passwords on your person?
Yes.
Oh, really?
In my brain.
In your cell phone?
No,
That's on your person. Do you share passwords with employees, coworkers, family members? If you share a password with a child, you're just telling them that it's okay for them to share a password with their friends. So remember that, because a lot of parents, I'm a banker, a lot of parents think, oh, I'll just tell you what password to pick for your bank account. Well, that just told them right there, oh, I can tell my friends my passwords because my mom said I could just get my password. All right, so a couple things. They're going to talk about phishing, so I'm not going to touch too much on that, but I was going to say, people make a phone call and they say, hey, can you give me your account number because I need to check up on your insurance. My customers, I get phone calls weekly. I gave out my account number on the phone. So this happens. It happens all the time. People do it. So somebody's calling to get information. Now, you're a business owner. Are your employees giving information to people that because remember, you're the owner and they're not the owner. They might not be thinking like you are about protecting their assets. So they might think, oh yeah, I can give that piece of information. Oh yeah, it's a vendor, I can give them my account number. So monitoring your credit report. If you are getting an annual credit report and you have it, do you know how to look at it? If you don't know how to look at it, go to your banker, because your banker will help you. I offer all the time to help my customers look at their credit reports, because of course I'm looking to help them improve their credit. But I'm always willing to help people look at credit reports and help look and see if there's anything there. Checking your bank accounts and setting up alerts. So I know some of you said you have alerts that come up. This is something like where a transaction goes through and your phone says, you just did a $500 withdrawal at the ATM. Or you have a credit card, and your credit card, I always get an email in the middle of the day on my phone that says my husband's been using the credit card. So I know right away, and I'll go, oh, did you use the credit card? And he'll say, yeah. He uses it for work too, so sometimes it's really large amounts, and I'm like, this is you, right? So it's really good to have those alerts. Okay, on here you're going to see a couple things that you need to do as far as the Equifax breach. And one of them is to log in to check if you were a person who may have been vulnerable in the breach. Now, I checked both mine and my husband's socials, and I'm the vulnerable one, and he's not. So now our credit reports are all together, and so what are we going to do? So here's some things. You can freeze your credit report, and you can put a fraud alert on it. Now, if you freeze your credit report, it's very difficult to do lending. And if you're a person who's constantly doing lending, using loans, getting vendor relationships, it's very difficult for them to have a frozen credit. So a fraud alert is safe for everybody. It just means any lender needs to have a little second check. They're going to call you up. They're going to ask you security questions. So that's something that you can do right away that will help you. Obviously, do not share passwords. There are businesses that like to avoid spending money on online banking, so they share their passwords with their employees. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. Make sure you use e-statements and e-bills. That way you don't have documents that are coming and mail and stuff that's sitting around. Online bill pay, using bill pay instead of going to the website to pay your bills. When you go to a website to pay a bill, you've now given another person more of your information, whether it's your debit card, your credit card, or your account number. You do bill pay, it's all handled by you. You press the button to submit a pay going out. And I know a lot of people have stuff set up, and that's the thing we need to get out of, a bad habit of having all of our information out there. Setting up payments with vendors. You're a business and you're giving out your account number. You don't want to do that. You can set up ACH. There's lots of products for businesses to keep your account number information safe. Shredding confidential information. I know I'm really bad about just tearing those credit card applications up and putting them in the garbage. That is not a good idea. Get them shred. Get them. You can bring them to the bank. There's lots of places that do a shred day. Bring your bag of shred and put it in there. That's much safer. Using features on a bank account to protect from fraud, like what we have is called positive pay. It's something to help businesses so that your information isn't getting out there. Sending confidential documents securely. So all of us, like financial institutions or attorneys, we have websites where you can actually go through them and send your secure information. Instead of us just saying, oh yeah, just send us your tax returns, we can send you an email that means you can send us back information securely and it doesn't get out there. So you always want to look for that. Protect you and your employees by making sure that your employees are not doing things that for you that you should be doing. I can't tell you how many times we have employee fraud, embezzlement that's going on, and you think you know them, and you've known them for 20 years, and you grew up with them, or they all, at some point, those things can be vulnerable. You don't want to put yourself or them in a position where they can do that. So I'm going to end with two examples. So first is, recently had a customer come in with a check that they made payable to their vendor for this amount, $4,259.67 in May. Went through. They brought the check to us, a week ago. It was completely changed, who it was made payable to. So when they saw it come through their bank account, they said, our vendor got paid $4,259. But when they looked at the check, it was made payable to someone else. Somebody had stolen that check. They never knew. The vendor finally said, hey, you never paid us. This is 4 months later. So it's important to look at your statements. You're getting copies of your checks, or make sure that they're getting paid correctly. Make sure the amounts are right, and make sure the people that are getting them. And then the second thing is wires. Now, this is a big thing that's going on with fraud where people hack in. They say, they say they're the boss. Like my boss emails me and says, I'm I want you to send a wire to this place. You need to do it by this amount. And they give you all the information. Boss came in to my branch a month ago with the wire. Here's a wire. And we said, oh, it doesn't really have information. And they said, oh, I don't even know about this wire. My office manager told me to send it. He goes back to the office manager. You sent me an email to do this wire. So it's so important that you're making sure all these little things. And these are stories that are happening. They happen all the time. So be careful. Now, I have a few things for you guys that I left. I have this. I didn't send this out to you guys. But if anybody's interested in having for identity theft, this is something that you can grab from me. And I'm happy to help you with any questions later. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamara. Outstanding. So we're going to go right off into Kenneth Frank Accountancy with Michael Loskutoff. I like your last name. It's a cool last name.
Thank you. Most people can't pronounce it. Tough act to follow, particularly because I don't have any money to throw at you guys. So next time I will bring the money. There you go. Now, yeah. So I'm a CPA and tax advisor, and so what I'm going to talk about, which kind of goes with the identity theft and the fraud, is tax-related identity theft that's related to tax fraud. So basically what happens is the crooks get your information from Equifax. Then they go to try to obtain credit, get money, however they can. One of the avenues that they try to pursue is by filing a fraudulent tax return. So what happens is they get Social Security number, name, address, enough data where they will dummy up a return, and their whole game has been to file a return before you file your return. So they'll file a tax return, it will have fake W-2, fake withholdings, and it'll say, give me a $2,000 refund. And the IRS is catching up, but that's the whole entire scam. Pretty basic. So how do you know if it's happened to you? You can't take a credit report. There's no file you could request from the IRS. But the way that you become aware of it is basically there's kind of three ways that happen. The first thing is the IRS or a state agency, but it's primarily the IRS, will send you a tax notice. You'll get a letter in the mail. And I'm actually going to stop right there. I'm going to tell you that is how the IRS will always correspond with you. So if you get a telephone call from the IRS, it's a scam. If you get an email from the IRS, it is a scam. 100% a telephone call or an email is a scam. An official, you'll know, it's a letter, you'll see it, has IRS, Department of Treasury, etc. But that is the only way, and this is not just for fraud related, this is for anything tax related. The IRS will never call you. So I just want to hammer that into everybody and take that home and tell your family and friends, because that's one of the ways that they go ahead and obtain your information to prevent further fraud is with a phishing scam over the telephone or email. So you get a notice from the IRS and it says, a tax return has been filed in your Social Security number. Typically the IRS is going to give this notice because something doesn't add up. It's the information that they have on record for you doesn't agree with what's on the fraudulent tax return. So the IRS basically says, hey, we got a tax return. It doesn't look right, but you have two options. Tell me this is yours. If it's yours, check this box, sign here. IRS will then occasionally will ask for some supporting documentation. So basically what they will say is, hey, if this is your return, and I've had this happen with clients where we filed a return, IRS said, hey, we think something's wrong here. We said, no, this is a return we filed. Client signs off, you submit a copy of the W-2, some 1099s, maybe K-1s, whatever data they asked for, and then you're off to the races, everything's settled. Now, the second option on that notice is you get a notice and it says, hey, a tax return's been filed in your name, and whoa, lo and behold, I did not file that. Now what do I do? So on the tax notice, you basically can call the IRS and alert them to the fraud, or you can check the box B, which is, hey, this is not me, I didn't do this return, and send that in. And then what that does within the IRS is it triggers a fraud alert, similar to what the credit unions will use within the IRS, so that now your account has been flagged for fraud, which means the IRS will take a little bit closer look, for good or bad, they're gonna take a little bit closer look at all the tax returns that you file. So basically, that is the first and primary way that you will learn about it. The second way is vast majority of people now file the returns electronically. So what happens is your taxpayer prepares your return, you give them authorization, we hit the button, we send the return off. Oftentimes you will get a rejection notice from the IRS and it will say a tax return has already been filed using this Social Security number. So boom, that's the second way you can find it, is just that someone, and once again, they try to get it in there before you. So when that happens, there are steps to take, and we'll go through that quickly. The third way that you'll get it is, and this is less common, but we have seen it as well, is you will start getting tax notices from states where you have no activity and have never filed a tax return. I had a client client had an awkward scenario because he used to file in Pennsylvania, then did not file a tax return for probably 10 years because his business interest moved, and all of a sudden started getting tax notice of Pennsylvania, and this is about 3 years ago. And so what happened was someone tried to file a state tax return using a fake W-2 and getting some withholding back. So that's kind of the third route you'll get it is if you don't catch it yourself, then eventually you get tax notices saying, hey, something's not right, you owe more money. So what do? If you got the tax notice and you said it wasn't me, I haven't filed my return yet, now what are the steps that you can take? So first with the IRS, there's an identity theft form, and it is, I can never remember it, 14039, so form 14039. And I have all this information. If you want to send me an email, I can give you all the documents I'll reference here. But basically you file this form. What it is, it's an identity theft affidavit. And so you file it with the IRS, and it basically, once again, it puts a fraud alert on your account so that they will take an extra close look at any return that's filed for you. It also kicks off the process of getting the fraudulent information scrubbed from your taxpayer account. Not difficult to do, just takes time. The IRS, they're slow, as we know. I have had some ID theft issues resolved within 6 months, some that take like 2 filing seasons, which basically is a 2-year period. Ultimately, there's no cost to the taxpayer because it's all fake fraudulent returns, none of it's yours. They don't come back to the taxpayer saying, hey, we issued a refund to you on this fake return and now you owe us $1,000. It doesn't ever come back that way, but it does become a pain to clean up your tax record. And you want a clean tax record so that when you go to pull information for your mortgage, when you sign the form that authorizes someone to get a copy of your tax return, you want to know what they're getting, right? You want to have a clean tax record. So time consuming, yes. Frustrating, yes. But ultimately, it's not going to cost you any money back to the IRS. So basically, that's the IRS form. California has a similar form, the 3522. Does the exact same thing. California is a little quicker, faster to work with, and this is true in all instances, easier to work with. But the state has the same process where you can submit the identity theft affidavit form. They will then keep a close eye on your account. They will help you go through the process of cleaning up any fraudulent activity. One item to note in light of the Equifax breach is with the federal form, there is a box to check. You can actually, it is a reactive form. In the past, we've always said, oh, there's identity theft, now let's file the form. There is a box to check on this form where you can say, I am a victim of identity theft, but I don't think it's affecting my tax records. So what that does is now you can check the box and preemptively file this. All it's going to do is just alert the IRS that, hey, I'm a victim of fraud, probably from the Equifax or whatever, and now if they will basically take a close look at your account. So now if someone files a fraudulent return, it's going to get flagged and pushed aside right away. The IRS will let you know that it happened, but it won't even hit your tax record. It'll just say, hey, we got a fraudulent return, we've dealt with it, you're done. It's an idea that we are kicking around about telling our clients whether, because if you go and look at Equifax, I was one of the people who's affected. Probably half the people in this room were. So it's a preemptive idea is to go file this identity theft form ahead of time. And all that would really do is it would prevent the fraudster from making your life a little more difficult down the road. So we talked about what do we do? Oh, if you are a victim of identity theft and someone did file a tax return for you, lucky you can possibly participate in the IRS's IPPIN program. So what this is Identity Protection PIN program. I said possibly because not everyone's allowed to participate. So what it is, it's a second, a second piece of information to verify your identity. So if you can get into the IPPIN program, the IRS sends you a PIN number. Now when you file your tax return, you have to include your PIN number on the tax return. So what does that do? That prevents the crook who has your tax information from filing a return because he has all your Social Security name, address, can make up wages, W-2, whatever, but he doesn't have the IPPIN number because that was mailed to you and only you should have that. So now that prevents a fraudulent return from being filed. Now, how do you get an IPPIN? You have to have been a subject to the identity theft, tax-related identity theft, right? So not just because you were part of the Equifax breach, but also someone filed a false tax return. Once you're there, then the IRS will give you the option to joining, which I would recommend. We have clients who do it, but you have to go through that hurdle. Unfortunately, they don't let you voluntarily participate unless you live in one of 3 places: Florida, Georgia, and Washington, D.C. And why? Because those 3 places have significantly above average tax-related identity theft. So there you go. So if you filed a federal tax return with Georgia as your home state, you can voluntarily enter this program. Ultimately, it's going to get, I think part of this is that they're testing to see how well it works, both with the small pool of, like highly susceptible applicants from Florida, DC, and Georgia. And then they're also seeing how it works with the people who have been subject to identity theft, tax-related identity theft already. IRS is taking steps. One of them is the IPPIN program. The other one is they are now preventing us, all of us, if you're an early filer, you get all your tax data ready right away. Some people used to, hey, it's January 15th, got my W-2s, got my 1099s, real estate taxes, file a tax return. Well, now they're delaying it a little bit more. What that does is it allows all of us taxpayers to gather more of our data. Whereas before, the fraudsters are trying to hurry up, get that tax return filed so they can get the money back before you even get a chance to do it. So the IRS is kind of pushing the opening to tax season back a little bit. Not significantly, but enough to kind of weed out that first level of fraudsters who are trying to commit the crime with your Social Security number. The other thing they're doing is they're delaying processing of refunds. This isn't on normal refunds. This is primarily related to, like, if you have an earned income credit or an additional child tax credit, certain credits that have been more commonly associated with fraudulent tax returns because they're refundable credits. They're giving you more money back than you paid in. So like you have your IRS, you have your W-2, you got your withholdings, and your withholdings were $2,000. Well, you qualify for a credit, you got your $2,000 withholding, you get a $1,000 earned income credit, $1,000 additional child tax credit. All of a sudden you're getting back more than you paid in, which is, those credits are there for a reason. They're to help low-income people and people who need the money. It's a social assistance program. However, those items were very, I can't give you a percentage, but they're on a very high percentage of fraudulent tax returns. So if you have one of these credits, your refund is going to be delayed. The IRS is typically slow with the refunds anyways. That's kind of how they are. The state's better. One thing that we have been doing more often is many of us get a tax refund. On the bottom of page 2 of your federal tax form is a spot where I want my tax refund deposited directly into my bank account. It's great because it gives you your money weeks in advance than if you get the check. It's not so good because now you have banking information on a form that has your Social Security, name, address. If the IRS ever got hacked, now they have pretty much everything, unless you change your account number, et cetera. So we are now tending to recommend to our clients. Some clients don't care. We make people aware of the risk. If you're aware of the risk, you still want to file it with your bank account number, that's fine. But we're just making people aware of it.
1 minute.
1 minute. All right. So the last thing I was going to say is I've talked pretty much about individual-related identity or tax-related identity theft. On the entity level, businesses, we haven't seen it that much. I think I've seen 1 fraudulent return filed. Chris and I were talking before the meeting started in that just because it hasn't happened, it doesn't mean that they're not going to find a way to do it. So right now, the big takeaway is for businesses, you're a target not for the tax-related identity theft, but to gather information for people to go commit like crimes using the information they gather from you. The employee information, the owner information, your customer's information. So you're not yet really risky, but it's something that could happen in the future. That's about it.
All right. So as you guys know, I'm Vance with Ashe-Cosgrove. Chris and I are speaking today, and I'm going to start by telling you about some of the risks that you will face with regard to mainly your computers in your business or personal computers. So some of the common risks for people when they have a computer, which is all of us. Some of the common risks are phishing attacks, cookies, which seem very indiscriminate, Trojans, which are bad, and viruses, which are really bad. So phishing attacks are, like you guys said, they're attempts to basically get your information. And on computers, many times that's done by giving you a fake website that looks like a real website. If you look right here, you may not be able to see it, but there's nothing in there that says anything about B of A, Bank of America, nothing. It's just, in fact, it says SCLGCH1EU.EU, which then you know it's Europe. So this is a very common way for people to try to get your information. And your browsers often have some features in them, and you can do some add-ins on your browsers to sort of catch some of these things. So, but they're getting way more sophisticated. So also cookies are a very common thing, and cookies are one of the ways that people get caught too, because people browse all kinds of websites, and almost every website pushes cookies to your computer. And then your computer saves those cookies so that the next time you're on that website, a lot of times it's legitimate stuff, like Macy's or Home Depot or something, so they kind of can track your habits. It's marketing, but oftentimes it's nefarious. So one common cookie is you'll get this alert on your computer, and we've received a number of times from clients saying, my computer is hacked, and they want me to call a number. Never, ever, ever, ever call that number. Because the first thing they're going to ask you for is what? A credit card, so they can help you and pay you. And even if it says Microsoft on it, don't call the number, please. In fact, Chris and I have done it actually. We've seen computers, and we call the number, and we said, oh, this is really bad. Yeah, we'll call you. We're in a bad place. Let us give you this number. We gave them a number. He said, call us back there. We gave them the Petaluma PD's number. Trojans are really serious things. They are the one things that a lot of banking attacks are used to get information. And a lot of times you can get this message. This is a serious one, SpyEye, one of the families of Trojans that they send to your computer. Many of you have probably never even seen SpyEye, but it's just one of them. The next one attack is a virus attack. And like I say here, virus is most like a cancer, because a virus attack has one function. Its only function is to destroy the data on your computer and possibly destroy your computer so that it won't operate anymore, to the point where you have to reinstall the operating system. If you ever feel like you have a virus or a Trojan, oh, that's mine right there. No. What you should do is you should unplug your computer. You should unplug it from the internet. You should shut it down, and you should call a professional. Don't do anything else with it. Nothing. So if you ever run into having either one of these last two, please do that, because you may have some data loss, you may have some damage, but you will minimize the damage by a ton if you take those few simple steps. So additional attacks, malicious software or spyware, which people send to spy on you. And one of these things that you may have heard about is this guy, the student, who did that to another student on campus, where he could activate her webcam on her laptop without her knowing. And so students constantly have their laptop open. And if they don't know, on laptops, a lot of times there's no light to indicate that the webcam's active. And he was taking pictures of her and stuff. So that's not good. So the other thing is, how many of you guys have like Xbox? Maybe not. I mean, there's a device called Kinect. I have one. But basically, it listens to you all the time. In fact, I walk by it, and it says, "Hi, Vance," on the screen. So my wife and I never discuss financial information or anything in front of that thing. So another thing is botnets. I don't know if anybody's heard of bots, but bots are groups of computers that have been compromised, and they may not even be in the same location. They could be connected across the internet, but in different locations. And the hacker is using those bots to execute either some criminal activity or some spam or many other kinds of things. Many people complain, man, my computer is really slow. It's because they're possibly a zombie in a bot group. And well, that's what individual computers called. It's a zombie. But and so the hacker is basically using all kinds of processor time on your computer to do whatever activity they've decided they want to do. And that's you and several, could be thousands of other computers, all connected. So that's one. The other one is just plain old spam. We all deal with this every single day. But the thing is that spam is often one of the easiest ways for criminals to infect your computers, because you hit a link accidentally. I mean, it actually, a lot of times it doesn't hurt to see the spam mail, but if you hit the link inside that spam mail, that's bad. Never hit the link. And if you're suspicious, it's better just to delete the email and have the person send it back to you and say, you know, I didn't get that mail, that's fine, but it's better than trying to clean up your computer 4 hours, 5 hours to get it fixed. And rootkit, you guys probably never heard of these. Rootkits are basically tools to obtain basically admin level to your computer so that the hacker can do pretty much anything they want on your system. So even though you have a password in your system, they have a password now on an admin level to let them do whatever they like. Whatever they like. So I'm going to see if this other part is going to play. Let's see here if this will play. Well, I was having trouble with that in the other room, but it's Donald Rumsfeld. And Rumsfeld saying here, he said, you know, there are things that we know, there are things that we know we don't know, and there are things that we don't know we know. So, so I say, please minimize your unknowns on your system, because it'll save your company. It will save your company one day. You cannot afford to mess around with this. So that's my presentation. It was short, it was sweet, but awesome. Chris will take over from here.
Right on.
All right, my name is Chris Cosgrove. I'm the other half of Ashe-Cosgrove, and now that Vance has scared you about all the different ways that your computer can be hijacked, I'm going to start going over some of the solutions. Now, some of the people who have heard me speak before know that I usually like to end one of my presentations with a call to action, generally a list of things that you can do for cheap or free that you can go back to your offices right now and implement that'll help you without having to call anybody or spend any money or spend just small amounts of money. So it's going to be one of those kind of presentations. I have some handouts which will have some of the resources in here. So I'm going to split these up. So this presentation is 5 powerful steps to strengthen your IT security posture. And these are steps you can do right away. Okay, IT security is very complicated. There's a lot of aspects to it. For somebody who's not a professional, you get back to your computer after hearing all our speakers speak today, and the first thing is going to be, where do I start? You know, it's not easy to do. So we go over a few simple steps that you can do right now. One of the benefits is that it's going to build good security habits for you. So as you start doing simple things now, you're getting in the mindset to make security a priority, and you get in the habit that practicing good security isn't an insurmountable challenge anymore. These 5 steps I'm going to give you are going to cover some basic IT security concepts for you guys at a very low level. And they're going to be things like password complexity, auditing your IT systems, compartmentalizing your information, so if there's a breach in one area, it doesn't carry over to everything else in your life, and using things like multi-factor authentication to prevent one thing that Tamara was mentioning, which is password sharing. We can shut that down technically with tools like that. And then you'll be able to apply these concepts to your organization and your business and encourage your employees or your coworkers or perhaps even your management to start adopting security practices after you take some leadership and apply these to your own space. The first thing you can do is change your password and pick a good one. We have for, I'm going to say 30, 40 years, have been trained to pick passwords that are very difficult for us to remember, but are incredibly easy for computers to guess. And we live in the age where a hacker or a criminal with a credit card can simply spin up a supercomputer in the Amazon cloud and start cracking passwords just like a government agency can. So short passwords that are complicated look strong, but they aren't. So your password is your first line of defense. If your password gets compromised, all of a sudden you can start having a domino effect. If someone gets in your email, then they can start getting information from your bank. I can go to another website, I can ask for a password reset, it'll send it to that hacked email, boom, you're in that password. So all of a sudden it starts acting like dominoes. So you need to have your good passwords, and they will be your first line of defense, and if you don't have a good one, it's your worst weakness. Long passwords are better even if they are simple. So if I take 4 or 5 random words together, such as on Tamara's thing, I picked 5 words: frequently, information, protect, monitor. I just string those words together. I have over 20 characters of data. For each character in my password that I have, my password strength increases by approximately a square. It doesn't just double it, it exponentially increases it. Now, realistically, if I'm taking all the letters and numbers out or minimizing them, it's not quite a square, but it's still a lot stronger than, say, an 8-character password that has, like, you know, an S, capital S, a 3, a C, a U, an R, 1, T, Y. You know, that sounds, you know, it's hard to remember. You have to remember all this permutation. It's difficult. Security is a way of life is simple, right? There's none of the required features that most people want in there, but it's still a stronger password. Now, you're going to run into websites or systems that are going to tell you you need to have a capital, you need to have a number and all that. Just capitalize one of the letters, put a number on it, and you have a 20, 25 character password that is closer to unbreakable than most people would care to admit. So that's the first thing you can do. Doesn't cost anything. It's cheap. It's free. You can go back to your desks and do it now. Very easy. This comic's been floating around. I included it here. This person is a NASA scientist that has this webcomic on the side. He's licensed his work under the Creative Commons, so he encourages sharing stuff like this. But you can see, and I'll let you guys look at it later, but some of the science behind it and how the math works explains it. But basically, you know, this password gives us 28 bits of entropy. This password gives us 44 bits. And remember, it's a square. It's not just like, oh, I've got, you know, 10, 15 extra characters. It's actually 10 to 15 times on a power higher. So it's going to take 3 days to guess that password in the Amazon cloud. It's going to take 550 years to guess that password in the Amazon cloud. So there you go. Here's the next one. Pick a different password for each asset or service. Don't use your computer password on your banking website. Don't use your banking password on your email website. Don't use your Facebook password, you know, anywhere else. Keep them all separate and use passwords like this. That's, like I said, if someone gets into your email or one of your other services, they can start going after everything else. It only takes one, and then you've got a problem. But there's a problem. How do you remember all those passwords? Well, use a password manager. Now, some people will do this and they'll have, like, you know, a piece of paper they write it on, put it in their desk drawer, they'll use a Word document or something. I don't recommend that, because now you have this file that if somebody gets a hold of it, they have everything. There are free and cheap tools out there to do this. One of them is called KeePass. It's an open source tool, and I've written that down on the sheet there. That makes an encrypted password file that lives on your computer, and it's protected by strong encryption, right? If you lose a password, you're not getting into that file. But that will keep everything safe and organized. Another tool that's popular is one called LastPass, and that's a cloud service which basically holds an encrypted file of your passwords, right? Even though it's in the cloud on the internet, you're encrypting it locally and then sending the encrypted passwords to the cloud. LastPass could never get in there, but you have everything you need, and you can have 200 different accounts in there, and you just search for, oh, Facebook, and you got your password. Now, one of the things that when you start using a tool like this, instead of having to pick a password for everything, if you just start picking them in a password manager, you can do these big, long strings of gibberish, which is the most secure of all. And since you don't have to remember it, you have them written down and you copy and paste them. It's easy to implement. So this is something you can do for free or cheap, doesn't take long. Some organizations may have specific IT security policies around this, so check with your team. But generally, tools like this are HIPAA compliant, they're SEC compliant. They're good to go. The next one is use two-factor authentication. Now, passwords are still the weakest link in the chain here. Even a good password can be compromised. So what two-factor authentication does is it relies on something you know, your password, and something you have. Either a code generator app on your phone, or a text message it sends you, or something that you have to have physically in order to prove, hey, it's me. The nice thing about that is your password does get broken, they still can't get in. Also, getting to Tamara's comments, it prevents people from sharing passwords. You enable two-factor authentication for your employees, they're not going to be able to share passwords among each other anymore. Shuts it right down. Most banking websites will do this, Google will do it, Facebook will do it. Most websites now are implementing this because it just makes sense, and it significantly increases your security. After picking a strong password, I'd say this is maybe the second best thing you can do. I recommend doing it immediately. Keep your software up to date. Most of the exploits that Vance was talking about, attack flaws in the system that have already been found and fixed. So update everything. Make sure your Windows Update is operating, and I have the quick instructions in the sheet. Beware of fake updates and banner ads, right? You go to a website that says you got to update your Adobe Flash. Don't. Go to Adobe if you need to update Flash. And you can use tools that will audit all the software on your computer and automatically update it, so you don't need to worry about, hey, is this update legit or not? And that's a good thing to consider. And the last one is enable logon notifications. You log on to Facebook, you can set it to send you an SMS or a text message, just like the banking websites. If you run a credit card transaction, you get a notice. If you log into your banking website, you should get an email or a text message, hey, somebody logged in. You'll know right away if something doesn't look right. You get an alert saying, yeah, I logged on from Kentucky. Well, I'm not in Kentucky. What happened? You know something's not right. And this is the first step in learning to audit system access. So keeping track of what people are doing on your computer and what your employees are doing, this is the first step to do it. All right. And then there's some follow-up items I have in the sheet. I'm not going to go over these. This is a very complex subject, and I've intentionally left a lot out. Like I said, I want this to be a starting point to learn good habits, to take leadership, and to get your mindset in a security mindset. Thank you.
Awesome. So if you have questions for Michael, write them down.
So I have a question. If I discontinue web payment on a specific card site, will my account info be erased? Well, we know the internet. Nothing is ever erased. So, no. I would say that start good habits now. If you already have a lot of information out there and you get a new bill you have to pay, start a new habit now. All right, second one is, does freezing your credit affect credit you already have? Can you still use your credit cards? I haven't done this yet, so I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure you can keep using your credit. What it keeps you from doing is getting new lending products. Like if you want to refinance your house in the next 5 months, it's not something you want to do. It's going to be a big pain for the lender. Or you need new credit, or, kind of.
We have ours frozen. So basically, it's just you have to unfreeze it so the lender can go in and
Right.
look at your records, and then you freeze it again. And
Right.
It's $10 every time you unfreeze it.
My current cards work fine.
Okay,
Then you can
Okay.
use your credit card.
and as a lender, really, if you call them in, Equifax is having their own little issues about unfreezing it. The important thing is if you freeze it, there's a PIN number they give you. Do not lose that.
That's exactly
PIN
what I was
number.
going to say.
So otherwise, just do what you had said and do an alert. But if it is not a big deal for a lender to get it unfrozen, it is a big deal if you lose that PIN number.
It can take a year to get your credit active again.
Oof.
Happened to one of my clients. Don't lose that PIN.
All right, those are my questions.
Keep it in your password manager.
Thank you.
That's a good idea.
Awesome, Michael.
So I had a question regarding the IPPIN program. How to get in since it's not voluntary?
If you qualify, the IRS will send you a letter. So they will send you a letter and then you can opt in, which I would recommend doing if you do get that letter. The other question was, what is the opening to tax season now? The IRS typically sends out, give a notification. I believe this year it was late January, which normally it was early January. And that was for the 17 filing season for the 16 year. I would imagine that in 2018 you could start filing your tax return in late January. If they have glitches, this is a big caveat, if there's any tax law changes, which we don't know, there may or may not be, that could throw the opening to filing season further out, which would be maybe early February, and that's just really a function of Congress passing laws. IRS needs time to update all of their systems to comply with the laws. The other question I got is, how do you know, because I know it happened to me, how do you know if you've been compromised in the Equifax breach? If you go to their website, there's a place, I can't remember exactly on the website, but you can go to the website, you have to put in a little bit of information.
It's on my.
Oh, there you go, it's on the green sheet, but it's basically put in some personal information, I think it was the last 6 of my social security number, ask some questions, I think, about where you lived, is this address yours, etc. Then they will let you know, yes, you've been you party to this breach, or I'm guessing they say no if you're safe.
Wow. Can I ask you a really quick question?
Quick.
Absolutely.
How long do employers have to get your W-2s out?
January 31st.
That's a good question.
Then they'll allow for.
Oh, and you said employer. It made me think of one thing as a business owner that you can do. Obviously, you want to talk to people like this to secure your network as much as you can. We use an encrypted portal. There's different ones out there. Banks use them. But if you're sending any data, any sensitive documents, encrypted portal, and then you can also get, I'm going to give you the right term, but it's a data breach or cyber liability insurance. So there's insurance carriers that if you are a business, we have it because we have sensitive taxpayer data. You can get the insurance, and they provide some preventative measures that you can use up front and access some services. And on the backside, God forbid you ever do have a breach, they will help you with notifying clients, customers, etc. So it's probably worth its money for all of us.
Great. Vance.
All right. My first question is, what's the best antivirus, anti-spam software for individual computers? Well, we use for both servers and for workstations, we use ESET, ESET software. And they're out of San Diego. And we like it because it's extremely powerful with a very small footprint. We're not fans of Symantec because they literally take over your computer and they run constantly and just jack up the CPU cycles on your system. And you're like, why is my system so slow? And it's because every time you click on anything on your computer, it's busy in the back scanning it. And so ESET we found after trying many different softwares, we were really happy with. And we've deployed that on a pretty large scale to one of our clients that has offices here in the States and in the Far East. So that's, you got anything to add to that, Chris?
Yeah. In this day and age, antivirus is required, but it's not enough. Windows does actually have antivirus built into it as well now, which is, it's actually not too bad. But I also, and I think I have it in my handout, recommend an advanced anti-spyware application. And there's 2 out there that we use. One is called Malwarebytes, and one's called Hitman Pro. And you can use either one or the other, and they're a little more proactive towards scanning some of the more common threats you'll see out there these days.
So if you put that software on your system, Chris and Jim will tell you as well, it's important when the notice comes up asking if it can update the database, because it stores a little database of threats on your system, not threats you have, but threats that it's aware of. The database gets updated on a regular basis. It's important you let it update that so that your system will recognize a new threat if it comes out. So,
Quick question.
Somebody else asked me the same question. Let me see here. Wow. Recently received an email from a friend. It's It's hard to read.
That's my writing.
Please.
I'll just tell you.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I just got an email from a friend that said, click on this link, I have something I want you to see.
Okay,
And it just didn't sound like her, but I have a spam filter.
okay.
Can I still get that kind of thing coming through?
Yes, and I would say 100%, if you ever get an email from someone like that, because I received them from my brother, you kind of know the way that your friends and your family correspond with you, whether it's via text or email. If they send you an email, they usually will say more than just, hey, take a look at this. I mean, I get those regularly, and I just still erase them.
So the spam filter doesn't catch them all?
A lot of times it can. But I would say anytime you get any email like that, hit the delete button. That's just the safest thing, because 100% of the time I've seen it, it has this link in it. And the link is what basically gives the spammer permission to enter your computer. You're giving them permission to come in at that point.
Won't also the email address of the sender be weird?
Well, some people don't even know. Yes, it can be. So you can look at the email address, the full email address, and not just because some of us have email addresses for friends and family, and it just displays their name. So you have to right-click and look at the full email address of the sender to see if they spoofed the email address, and to see if it's kind of quirky. But I don't even bother with that. I just said delete. I don't even bother. And if it's a family member or something, they say, hey, did you see that thing? I say, well, no. Why don't you send it to me again? That's much safer than getting infected.
Yeah, email addresses can be spoofed too. It's relatively simple. So, really, the writing style, like Vance said, you know how your contacts communicate with you. If they start, saying, hey, look at the celebrities getting naked on camera, they don't send that stuff to me. What do you know? Yeah, exactly. You know that's fishy right off the bat.
We gotta make it quick. I apologize for running out of
Okay.
time. Please go.
I'll just read Trojan's viruses. Someone said, how do you deal with that? Just like I said, you turn off your computer. You unplug it from the internet, you unplug it from power, and then you call someone to come and fix it. Do not try to fix this yourself. These two things are pretty nasty. And if you do the wrong thing, you could help it along.
Is that the Zeus one?
Any Zeus or the Spy Eye, and there's several other ones. But basically, yeah.
I was wondering how you as professionals deal with it. We as a layperson who come to you, what do you guys do?
We have tools. That's what I was gonna say. We have tools, and we use those tools to basically, we can boot to the system without booting from the hard drive, and we can start looking at the hard drive and examining it and cleaning it up without engaging the hard drive. Because the antivirus or the Trojan needs your hard drive spinning in order to work. So we can look and find it and then kill it.
So if I had something that popped up that said I've been infected by the Zeus, whatever, and all these pop-ups start happening, I just shut it down. Is it over?
No, you shut it down and call someone.
Oh, call someone. Yeah.
Kiss your computer remote.
And then just opening it in the email like that, you get emails on your phone, I do. And I get emails from people I don't know all the time. If just opening the email,
Usually,
if there's no link, can you then look at it and say this doesn't make sense?
Usually opening an email doesn't do much. I won't say it can't, but usually you're safe. But like I said, don't hit the link. Don't open the attachment either. Don't download the attachment.
Running out of time.
Do you have any more left? I only have.
I have a couple, but go ahead.
Okay. All right, I got two here. Let's see, Ashe-Cosgrove rocks. That's not a question. But thank
I
you
wrote
anyways.
that.
The second one is explain the cloud. What is it? Will it go away when I need it? And can it be hacked? That's a big question. I'm going to distill it into like a 1-minute answer here. But basically, the cloud is a delivery model that's really defined by the fact that it's on somebody else's computers in a data center. From a security standpoint, that means two things. A, that means that you're sending your data to somebody else to hold on your behalf. So when you pick a cloud service, you want to pick a good one. For example, you may not want to use Dropbox as your secure file transfer solution. You may want to pick somebody that's a little more trustworthy, that like a bank or a CPA would use. That's an example of a cloud service. Anything can be hacked. anything. So we're going to get to the point where even your thermostat can get hacked or your car can get hacked. We're already there. So yes, it can be hacked. There's two people that are responsible for it. The cloud provider, they need to have the reputation and the know-how to keep your data safe. So use a reputable provider. And you need to pick good passwords, not reuse passwords, and use two-factor authentication to make sure they can't attack you on the front end.
Thank you, my panel speakers. You guys did awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm looking for speakers for 2018 as well as next month, so let me know if you want to talk about your business. I have a prize to give away.
Ooh.
So first person to raise their hand with the right answer gets the prize. In 2017, who won Small Business of the Year? Susan.
Valley Oak Wealth Management.
All right. And Anne is from Valley Oak. Did you say that in your little intro? I'd be talking about that all day.
Did I cheat?
Yeah, you should say that.
She didn't say that.
Always.
Yes, she
All right.
did.
Thank you,
actually.
everybody.
Did she?
Marin
Yeah.
Country Club was so generous to us. They will let us sit here and network until 3 o'clock if you want. Go through the buffet again. Do whatever you want, but I really appreciate your attendance and have a great week.
Somebody mentioned about business cards.
Business cards, please.